afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you have the opportunity to join me. I'm Dr. Jan. This is Russell Institute of Learning, Sidebar Education. I am talking about the money following children for where they go. So let me just say that this all started about a week ago when my sister sent me an article. And so this is information that is specific to the state of Ohio. But I've also found out at least that it's going on in Arizona. And so at this moment, what I'm going to say is I'm going to drop quite a few links into the description below, a link to this specific article, a link to some of the statistics that I'm going to talk about, a link to constitutional education that we may all need to start learning a little bit more of what does our Constitution actually say, and I'm sending a link putting in there what's going on in Arizona. And so I will get to those as we go along. So this article is called Group Plans to Put Christian Schools Inside Ohio Churches and Allow Kids to Attend with Public Money. So in that, I've got everything sort of set up here. So I've got one item with my notes. I've got the actual articles. So as I look back and forth, I want you to know I'm speaking to you. And as we go into this, I'm just wanting us to bring the voices of many sides, of many whatever your thoughts are, because until we can communicate and we don't so separate ourselves that we can't listen, and that was one of our recommendations from last episode of when students are trying to get ready to go back to school, we need to learn to listen to understand, not just, listen and then speak because we didn't really hear. So in this, within the article, within the first paragraph, it reads, a new private school has been commissioned in Columbus, but it's not like many others. What makes this one different is the elementary school is housed in a church in a low-income neighborhood. Well, with that, I quickly got on the phone with my cousin who I interviewed last summer, Margaret Howell, who is an educator. And we talked because both of our parents have been in education longer than we have. They have retired, but they still function. And both my mother and her mother worked in Christian schools for a period of their time. They've done both public and they've done the Christian. How often she and I had a conversation is like, this isn't new. Most Christian schools have started in some way, shape, or form within a church. Now, Margaret also brought up that, many of the Catholic Church, they are housed within a church. So what is really the issue that is here is about what we call the backpack money following the student. Here in Ohio, it is called EdChoice Scholarship Program. Now, let me tell you, it was very interesting that I wanted to find out more about this program, especially after I found out that there had been a program that is going on somewhat in Arizona and possibly other states. Every click link that I went to, and it's under the government of Ohio, it said not available. Not available. So the best information that I was able to receive was just looking at when you do the search and how they have the drop down, and it is federal money or state money that if a parent applies, they did have it where you could do the application, that the money can follow the child. At this point, I think it was $4,600 if you were elementary, and it was $6,000 if you were high school, which was interesting. In Arizona, the total cost per child was $14,000, but their program was only asking for half, or however it had been written. And so their theory was that because we are taking this money to follow the child, parents' choices, it's going to reduce the cost to the state because they're only taking $7,000 to educate the child, while still being in public it was $14,000. And so there's this difficulty. It's about the money. Unfortunately, no matter what we've ever been in our lives, by this time of my age, I have to unfortunately say, follow the money. So the question is really about the fact that public money is going to public these students. The fact, let me see. Okay, back up. The fact that public money is going aren't these students public students? So the real question is, these are public students. They are in the community. Their parents are paying the taxes, and they, as parents, are wanting to choose where their students are going. And so the question is, if the parents are paying their taxes and then they still have to pay tuition, are those who are conservative, okay, I'm not even going to go necessarily with Christian, but conservative parents having to double pay? And just to put out there that being in a Christian school should not mean more than we are wanting to teach moral values. It's not an automatic, oh my goodness, your child is going to have to convert to this denomination or whatever it is. So again, as I've said way back, and if you go read at my website, that Russell Institute of Learning is strongly based in God values, because God values really that we want to teach and we're taught. Many people who are my age and older, you were taught, love your neighbor as yourself. Do not steal, do not covet, and do not murder. I mean, I don't care if you're Christian, non-Christian, you go to church or don't go to church. Aren't those good things that we should all be learning? But those are things that, because we have come into this idea of separation of church and state, we're not teaching values or morals. And I know, let's see, where does it go in here? We'll get to it. Talks about diversity. Well, God wants us to love diversity and wants us to embrace it. But sometimes embracing the people does not mean I have to embrace their lifestyles. So let's first go, and I'm going to quickly read in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. This is the Bill of Rights. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Let's stop there first. Okay, that if you've had your history back in 1776 and even before that, many of the crowns, the monarchs, were very much entwined and entangled with whatever the church was of the time. So for a period, there was the Catholic Church that was very entwined with whoever was in rule. Well, that's when England separated and wanted to have the Church of England, which eventually we know is Protestant and going in that direction, because they were not wanting that the Catholic Church was going to be ruling over them. Well, it's still, what happened was the church became a strong arm or a controller of whoever was in the central government. So when our founding fathers left England and that they wanted to have a freedom of religion, and some came, you know what, there were many reasons people came, and because they just did not want the tyranny. And their First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. So they didn't want what happened in the old country to happen here, that we're going to set up, you're going to be Protestant, and everybody has to be Protestant. Everybody's Catholic, everybody. So that was that, and prohibiting and not prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So is it the government at this moment? I'm just speculating. This is where discussion needs to come in. If we are not allowing the money to follow our children, Is that the government prohibiting the free exercise of our religious choice, which then goes on to, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances? So this is going to be included in the link for the handout. I also have, his name is, let's go with Rick Green, and he does Patriot Academy, and I've given his Facebook link because they have all kinds of resources and all kinds of activities so that, you know what, we haven't been teaching the civics of the true Constitution, and they have paid, like I think it was $20 for the workbook, but what they're doing in different areas are trying to sign up groups of people so that you can do it in your home, you could do it at your church, we need to know, what does the Constitution really say and what does it really mean versus, oh yeah, that's what I've been told. Separation of church and state, what we've been told for, I bet 50 years or so, probably longer, that, you know what, church and government don't mix, can't have them, separate them. No, it's just saying that the government can't mandate what is the religion of our country. Not that religious people, godly people, conservative people can come into government. Because again, we go back to the goal is not that we're trying to make people become saved and into our denomination, but how about let's all live by a moral code that is loving. So again, one of the things that in many of our early schools, going back to even the 1800s, that the Psalms, Proverbs, and the Bible was used as part of the literary learning. And so I wind up having what's called wisdom reading. And so every month, for me personally, that I read, like on the first day of the month, it is Proverbs 1, then Psalm 1, 31, 61, 91, and 121. And so you go through the Bible in that way, or the Psalms and Proverbs. Well, you know what? It says, look at the ant and how hard it works, and it stores up, and it works together as a unit. Soft answer turns away wrath. And when righteous makes laws, the people rejoice. When tyranny dictate, the people mourn. I mean, those are just common sense information that we can get from the Bible and that would be taught. Now, yes, will a Christian school teach creation? Yes, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And my thought, again, and made in a comment of the last episode about kids going back to school, if we only teach evolution and we don't teach creation, I'm an honest believer. You need to, hey, go ahead, put it out there. Why can't we teach both? And then let the children, let the families decide what is your background. But if all the children think is that they have come from a glob of nothingness, then unfortunately they behave like a glob of nothingness. And so when we are fearfully and wonderfully made and that God has given us a purpose, then you know what? We change our very own attitudes without having someone on the outside telling us. Yes, will we teach original sin of Adam and Eve and God's redemptive plan through Jesus' life, death, and resurrection? Yes, because we need to know there is hope. So often, without teaching those items, people don't realize there is hope here on earth, not just heaven, but there is hope. And you say, oh, but Mrs. Russell, Dr. Jan, why are you talking about all of this? Well, because this is the true argument of why people have not supported giving money to the families who want to educate their children in a religious or conservative arena, and that it needs to stay in a public. But my concern also is if you stay and keep in public and you are telling this is all that can be taught, is that right back at the separation of church and state that you as government Are you really going to tell us in a broad overall manner what our children can and cannot be taught? Might not be called Catholic, might not be called Christian, but it is a type of formatting of belief. And belief does transpire with religion. So let me just say, if you don't want your child to learn these beliefs and values, then don't send them. It's okay. That's why it should be a choice. I get the desire for diversity, as stated in the article. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Oh, it was in here, and I know I can find it. I should have highlighted it. But the Mr. Carey, who is the Deputy Legal Director for American Civil Liberties Union of Ohio, says it's not just the money that troubles him, but it's important for schools to encourage diversity. And so I understand that because I've taught in public school, and sometimes you could tell the students who came from maybe homeschooling because they hadn't had enough of the diversity. However, there's some new wonderful homeschool, private school, co-ops where they go to the zoo, they go to the museums, they do their PE together. So over the years, it has improved. There is an ability for diversity. I have a previous student who is homeschooling her children, and they're involved in showing their livestock and learning through everything they do in the care for their animals. And it's just tremendous. And they're cooking and they're cleaning and measuring and knowing. So every child should be able to learn differently. And just because we're putting us into a box that you sit in this row, you sit here and you learn here and you learn at this time, this goes back to my research that many children can't learn like that. And that's why we are having such frustration. All right, so I get that even taxpayers within or without children don't want to pay for education of any kind. So again, because I've been in a school district where we had to raise our taxes, we sort of had to negotiate with those people. I don't have any kids anymore. I never had any kids, and why should I pay for that? Well, education is a form of paying forward. Children are our future. What values do we want those future leaders to possess? Current diversity of victim versus privileged, and whatever the topic. Okay, we're somewhat, as I see it, teaching more of, well, me against you versus us together. And so whatever the term may be, we need to start being able to work together, knowing that our future as a country, as a state, as a city, as a family is really vital and dependent upon education. So my question is, but don't manipulate or control the money so that children and parents can't afford their choice. If they don't want those beliefs or values that are being taught in what we would consider the public school, you're manipulating. If the money can't follow the child, then it's a manipulation. And then must attend schools with beliefs or where their parents don't agree. So back to the true separation of church and state. Remember, it's the government that cannot tell the country, the state, the city, this is the religion of our choice. It's not about church people receiving or conservatives receiving money from the state. It's just the state can't tell us that that's yes or no. It really is sort of been turned upside down and backwards. So if you don't want to believe me, I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to go study and learn. What does the Constitution really say? And so that we just stop repeating what we've heard and even realize that even when we've been educated, our civics, oh my goodness, I think I needed a half a credit to graduate, and I don't even know if they do it anymore. We don't know. We have been made illiterate in what are our constitutional rights and what it means to be a good citizen. What does that mean for public education? All right, it's a good question, because as a whole, U.S. education statistics indicates it is broken and not providing the academic achievement as compared to other countries. Well, as I did my quick research, it didn't look as bad as I thought I was going to see. And I've included this, the NCES, which I did use during my research, but I just did a quick overview, the National Center for Education Statistics. And this is between the years 2018 to 2019, and it's the adjusted cohort graduation rate. And overall for the United States, graduation rate was 86%. And it gives a map so that the lowest was in, I hate to tell you this, but in Arizona and New Mexico, with the highest percent of graduation, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, New Jersey, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And then all of the rest all scattered through. But don't forget, average. I would love to see the range. What was the range? And again, as you are reporting statistics, how many of these students either took the traditional 4 years, 5 years, or, and I know this for, I hate to say a fact, but certain students could be pulled out of the count because of age, retention, dropout, so that it does and would create a higher graduation rate. So that was part of, in my research, I really did look in detail. But for this article today, I just wanted to look quick. And so another article I looked at was international comparisons, reading, mathematics, and science literacy of 15-year-old students. And this is in 2018. Now, remember, as we're comparing, the group I just talked about for graduation would have been seniors. They're probably 17, 18. This is for 15-year-olds who are probably 10th grade. But in 2018, so that same time of graduation, there were 8 education systems with higher average reading literacy scores for 15-year-olds than the United States. So let's just read, because we can graduate, but when we graduate, what does that mean we can do? So there were 8 education systems with higher average reading literacy scores for 15-year-olds than the United States. 30 with higher mathematics literacy scores, and 11 with higher science literacy. So those are items you can go look at in detail. And what was it talking about? Well, my experience, I couldn't believe that when I calculated that I've been 40 plus years, right out of high school, got into education, but not the formal education, but did a lot of tutoring, a lot of substitute teaching, but those count. That 40 plus years, whew. But this was in the height of No Child Left Behind and my PhD research between 2008 and 2013. That nothing in education, nothing over the last 150, approaching 170 years plus, has not changed. Terminologies have changed. Oh boy, classroom structures have changed. But education is a mass industrial machine, not able to accommodate students and parents in a much more meaningful, student-centered, and focused education that, in my opinion, cannot be accomplished by a large-scale, standardized apparatus. And that's been the trouble. We want to standardize it across, because the more we standardize, the better we're going to meet our goals. I don't know that that's going to be true. I do believe in education outcomes and target dates of development and completion. And yet, if you get them ahead, then let's move you ahead. If you can't quite make it in the time, then we're going to still get you there. But you got 9 months, and then all of a sudden you have to be advanced. And then you got another 9 months. Students, and even as adults, we know we don't learn in that time period. So what I would like to see is that our education currently is not working to produce qualified graduates with moral character, hard work, ethics, and an ability to contribute to the community, values of love, respect, and patriotism, let alone the ability to add and subtract, grammatically speak and spell, as well as communicate respectfully with individuals with whom you disagree. You don't have to shout and scream, because you know what? As soon as you shout and scream, nobody's listening. Where is our dialogue? I was on a debate team. Loved it. And you had to know both sides, because when you went to the competition, you didn't know which side you would draw. And we have too many of our educated community. We don't know. Not because we haven't looked it up ourselves. We haven't searched for it. So it's time for us all to get engaged. Just our children shouldn't be getting educated. We as adults need to get educated. And here's my final takeaway. My opinion. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. And you don't have to agree with my opinion. And it's not my job to make you agree with my opinion. But it is my right that I can speak my opinion. But I also need to listen to yours. My final takeaway, my opinion, the current large-scale industrialized one-size-fits-all model doesn't work. So you can go check out my research. It's also in the description. Even with differentiation, oh my goodness, we differentiate. Individual education plans, IEPs, and a list of other pullouts. The current school system is failing our children and our society to produce capable and qualified adults into society. And I'm only making reference to the many individuals that have graduated and lack the basic reading, writing, mathematics, and critical thinking skills needed today. So, I mean, we could have gone into research and articles about what are the businesses saying about high school graduates who are coming out and their capability to, whether it's communicate effectively in writing, speaking, the mathematics. There are resources out there that are giving statistics on those. But this was just to get us wet in the appetite to start a discussion. And so what I'm hoping is that you are going to find yourself wanting to make a comment to this post, this video, and be respectful. Go through, read all of the links that I give below that you can be informed, and then let's have a discussion. I taught business industrial counseling as one of my degrees, and we learned and talked about effective communication. And it's also part of my research. Every voice needs to be heard. You create a better product if everybody puts the input, and then you constructively pull them apart. Why is this good, but why is it bad? It's called, the SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Look at all of the angles and then pull something together that might not have even been on the table, because you need to make sure that it is most resilient and that it is able to sustain itself. And I believe for our education system, we have been just putting Band-Aids and patches on the old way it's always been done, instead of thinking creatively outside of the box and allowing parents and students to choose their type of education. And you know what? I think that when we see these outside of the boxes, our education may wind up being in smaller pods. Teachers aren't going to lose their jobs. Oh my goodness, teachers are going to be so needed. But we don't need to teach on a 1,000, 2,000 school size, and we need all the money for the infrastructure and this. What happens if we can have 20? And that's my solid 20 that I take care of. And in my research, you'll see that often in some places they start at kindergarten, go to 5th grade with the same teacher. That teacher then knows what they need to know. There are benchmarks that they must accomplish, but you don't fail, you succeed. So then when they're ready to move, they've got to have those skills. And now the next set may be from 6th grade to 10th grade. And then you go 11th to 12th. So you keep a consistency of those who are in your life. But you know what? You can revolve different, I would say, the masters of the content in. Sure, because if I'm teaching chemistry, I know it. But I don't necessarily know it in depth of the teaching that could be from somebody who's an expert from the community. And they come in and they have all of their examples and they have their experiments. So we need to learn that there is a new, different way that we need to at least attempt to believe could be an option. Instead, well, that won't work. Well, that won't work. We throw things out before even having a discussion. So I wasn't trying to get on my soapbox, but I am very excited because it really is showing within our community that education is at the forefront of needing reformation, change, so that it can change and improve our society and that we can work together. Our goal is to have love, joy, peace, the pursuit of happiness. Well, we're not quite having that at this point in time. It's a pursuit of just survival. So we've got to go back. And our government cannot and should not be the answer to all of our problems. We need to start right here with me, with you, in our own families, in our own communities, and build up what is good and wonderful and hopeful for the future. Because remember, our children are our future. Thank you. Please like, follow, comment, and share. Check out the links below, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. I am Dr. Jan. This is Russell Institute of Learning, Sidebar Education.